have a few questions in here that I'd like to answer. First question, how do we overcome fear, and what is the next step to become an ordained monk? So let's answer the first question first. How do we overcome fear? We have to know fear first. Assuming fear is your enemy, you want to eliminate it. You have to know your enemy. You have to know your enemy, and you have to know yourself. Now, if that kind of fear arises based on causality from this life, it's easier to overcome, because that kind of fear only arises in this life. If that kind of fear has been accumulated from previous lives, it is very difficult to get rid of it. I heard stories about people who got killed in previous life in certain situations, that when they hear or see the same situation, they become very fearful. There was a child in a village after the Second World War. Whenever he heard the roaring of a plane flying by, he was completely obsessed in frightfulness. He was very, very fearful of plane flying over his head. Why? Well, after hypnosis, he was shot in the Second World War while cooking for the armies, and there was a few planes coming down, machine guns shooting all these people, and it was running away into the bushes. He couldn't make the bushes. He was shot in the back, and whenever he hear roaring of a plane, he becomes very fearful of it. And there was a girl who was afraid of the water because she was drowned in her previous life. So some fear is quite difficult to overcome. But if you know it, say, now that I tell you, some fear has been accumulated from previous life, you know that, oh, that kind of fear, I'm afraid of the water, I don't want to go to swim. How come I'm so fearful of the water? It's probably because you associated, you networked with that kind of situation in which you get hurt. So you know that is because of certain deeds that brings you to fear. And that fear has been in your alive consciousness for so long. So you have to remind yourself whenever it comes, you said, okay, I want to let go of the fear. I'm not fearful of it anymore because I have bad experiences about that fear. There was a lady who was fearful of her own husband because she got dreamed that her husband is finally going to kill her. So he's always fearful, especially the husband, when heard about the stories, and the husband always used that stories to threaten her. You got to do this, do that, otherwise I'll be after your life. No, even if you go away, I will find you. So you get more and more fearful of her own husband. And that may be because of previous life that she threatened her husband in previous life. We don't know. But one thing we know, you have to know your enemies first. If you know fear could be accumulated because of previous life, and depends on what kind of fear you have. Fear of death, then you have to analyze death. Death will come anyway. And if you know that you're afraid of death, can you do something about death? Go beyond death. The Buddha said, if you follow these steps in the training of your mind, if you can let go of all these and all these, you could attain nirvana. And once you attain nirvana, then no more death. The Buddhist teaching is aiming towards nirvana, which is going beyond death. No more death, no more pain, no more suffering, no more vexation. no more causality. But if you're working towards that, you know your fear, and that fear sometimes is self-generated. The one who untied the knot that tied around the ghost nest, the ghost neck, has to be the one who tied it. Have you ever heard of that saying? Somebody tie a string and put a bell, a mountain goat, make sure that the goat, where the goat goes. So tie a little belt in there. He tied it so tight, nobody can untie it. Only the person who tied it. You build up that fear, you tie that knot of fear, you untied it yourself. Don't be afraid of it. Understand it, know it. In the Chinese language, how do I say it? 解铃还须系铃人，解铃还须系铃人。听过？是不是有这个这一句成语啊？So to get rid of fear, untie the knot of fear yourself, confront it, face it, and dissolve it in your mind. When you're meditating, you say, this fear comes from within. No more fear now. If you chant the Heart Sutra, you know all this fear is sunyata. Fear comes because of causality. Causality has no essence of its own, no self-nature. That fear is causality. It has no permanent self-nature of fear. That fear is built up because of all these causes together that build up the fear. It has no self-nature. Asvabhava, no self-nature. It is temporary, it is causation. It never comes back again if you don't build up the causes. I'm not going to build any more causes of fear. I want to get rid of it. And in your mind you say, fear is a bag that has been in my mind, that pollutes my mind. I'm going to put that bag of garbage of fear inside that bag, and I'm going to throw it in the garbage, what do you call that, incinerator, or burn it up. Get rid of it. Always thinking of getting rid of the fear. Okay? Understand your enemies. Letting go of the fear. When fear comes to attack you, you let it go. Don't let it stay. Let go. Whatever comes in, go out. Whatever comes in, fear comes in now, it overshadows my inner peace. I'm not going to let it overshadow my inner peace. I let it flow out, flow away. What comes in, go out. You have to train yourself to let your enemy go. Don't trap that enemy in your mind. Let it go. Okay, so the next question, what is the next step to become an ordained monk? To become an ordained monk, you have to find a temple in which you get the ordination. You have to know your teacher. Who would be your ordained teacher? Your teacher will not just ordain anybody. If he doesn't know you, he won't say, I'm sorry, I don't know you. How can I ordain you? I don't even know your personality. I have to know whether you're suitable to be a monk or not. Don't say that I want to be a monk and I can be a monk. No. They may not allow you to be. If he doesn't know you, he doesn't know your background, he's not going to let you ordain. He's not going to ordain you. I'm sorry, I don't know you. If you want to be ordained as a monk, there's something, maybe you go to another temple. There must be someone who knows you have that desire to be ordained, who knows you can be on the right track, who knows you are getting onto a spiritual enlightenment process. You have to know your teacher, and your teacher have to know you. It's both ways. You just don't just go into a temple. Okay, Reverend, Venerable so and so, I want to be ordained as a monk. You don't even know the teacher. Is he a real monk? You don't even know. Know your teacher. Your teacher has to know you both ways, thoroughly. That is one condition. Know your teacher. You know your teacher has to know you. Build a relationship first. Second is Are you prepared? You want to be an ordained monk because you just get a divorce. You're so grief-stricken that you don't want to think about it. You just want to find an escape for the suffering of your life. Being a monk is not an escape for getting away from your suffering. You're finding a way to escape. Sorry, this is not an escape concentration camp. No. This is a boot camp for training to be enlightened. To be an ordained monk is not that easy. Know your teacher, you know your teacher has to know you. Your teacher has to make sure that are you prepared for it? You want to be a monk because you couldn't get a job. So you can eat and live in a temple. Oh yeah, I like the food. Vegetarian food, it's so nice. Somebody cook for me, wash it for me. I just sit there and say my chanting, and then I finish my meal. I don't even have to wash the dishes. If that's the reason why you want to become a monk, no, don't come here. I'm sorry. To be a monk, you have to go through training. Even you are willing to. There may be teachers at temple who are not willing to accept you. Venerable, I was wondering whether fear is wholesome or unwholesome mental functions. Feared, when we say unwholesome functions, it could be a vexation to you. It could be a fear that's illusionary. But in some situations, fear could be good for you. Because fear, if it induces you to think, induces you to be more careful, then that becomes a good function. Some people, they don't really care. They haven't driven a boat before and they go out to the ocean, bring friends out to the ocean until they have an accident, everybody die. You're not a good driver. You're not fearful of the road accidents. You carry passengers at the back of you and all these people die because of an accident. That's terrible. But if you are fearful with sense of care, due care, I have a little bit feared when I'm doing this because I haven't tried this before, so I'm not going to try it. I'm going to be very cautious with it. Then fear becomes wholesome. But if you always have feared because you're afraid of failure, I don't want to go to university because I'm always fearful of failing. That's not a wholesome fear. So how can I tell you? Nothing is absolute. Have you ever heard that word before? If fear arises because of care, and yet when you exercise the due care, you're not afraid of the fear, then that becomes wholesome. If that fear is perpetrating you because you have a sense of failing, you're afraid of failing it again, then that's not a wholesome fear. That's unwholesome fear. You understand what I'm talking about? So I can tell you. Next, can you explain to us again how meditation can help in changing our habitual negative thought patterns in our daily lives? Meditation can change all of that, but you need to practice it. When your clothes has been polluted for many, many years with all kinds of dirt, you need to clean it up with different methods, to bleaching, washing, a lot of ways to clean it up. So can you explain to us how meditation helps in changing our habitual negative thought patterns in our daily life? You have been doing it now. Depends on how conscientious you are. You've been listening to lectures that I've been talking about. You've been doing investigation and analysis and researches how to do it now. Don't rush into it. You are doing it now. You have to put an agenda. You say, I'm going to learn all this. I'm going to have to ingrain it in my mind indelibly, like a mark that's permanent in my mind, that I'm going to learn how to change my habit. I'm going to learn about how the mind works, And when the mind works, I'm going to do concentration. I'm going to use samatha and vipassana, like what the Buddha told me, to train myself, do it again and again and again until I got it all done. That's how you do it. There's no such thing as a teacher comes to you and give you a lecture and you forget all about your habitual pattern. No. Your first lesson is to know it. And that lesson involves a lot of time. Your first lesson is to know about your habitual negative thought pattern. That's what you're doing now. That knowing takes time. The first of all, you have to believe in it first, that you have that negative belief. You see, in the Chinese language, actually in the Buddhist language, but because I received my training by the literature in Chinese, 信解行證啊嘛，信解修證，信 you have to believe that you can change first. You have to have that faith that you can change yourself. That's faith, that's belief first. You believe that you can change that habitual pattern of your thinking. If you don't even believe that, you don't need to take a second step. So the first one is to believe in it that you can change. The second one is to understand, get knowledge of how to change it by receiving all the information from your teacher, the right teacher. So there's understanding. The third one is training yourself how to change that habitual pattern. That needs practice. And finally is nirvana. I'm using another example. I'm using boxing example. You're always boxing, right? You have to believe that you can master that art of boxing. Then you have to understand how do you do it. The teacher tells you this is how you punch, this is how you avoid, this is how you do it, this is your tactics. Then you have to know all these first. And knowing it is not enough. Practiced it. And then you have the achievement. So, can you explain to others again how meditation can help? I told you already. Believe in it that you can change that pattern. You can change your destiny. As I said, you sow your seeds, right? You sow words. What you reap? You sow words, you reap thoughts. You sow thoughts, you reap actions and speech. You sow actions, you reap habits. You sow habits, you reap your personality. Your personality determines your destiny. You are your personality. Changed it. Change your habitual pattern. You can be a Buddha. Not that you're always the follower of Buddha. You can be God. You are God within you. You don't believe it, you are God, right? You only believe that you are only a follower of God. No. You are God. God is the enlightened Buddha. Let's put it this way. Sometimes we don't really care. Yeah, we don't really care about the names. The names are not important. Then you raise your hand. What question do you have? Yeah, you can sit down. Yeah. So how do you look for the right teacher? Well, you have to build up the experience in identifying the right teacher. There's no strict rules on how to determine whether the teacher is good or not. It also depends on the intelligence of you to judge, because nobody can judge it for you. So what you do is, as I said before, you believe that it's a teacher, a good teacher. Not every teacher is bad, you know. You believe that there must be a good teacher. If you assume that all teachers are bad, so why look for it, right? So there must be some good teachers and some bad teachers. You believe in it, right? Then you try to understand, to investigate what's the qualities of good, what are these factors of unwholesome. So if that teacher is not looking for fame, I'm just simplifying it. He's not looking for fame and reputation. He himself is not involved with acquisitions. That could be a good teacher to consider. If you're always thinking about, oh, I want to become a famous teacher. Everybody know me. I'm famous. Then you know what? The Buddha says we shouldn't be preaching fame and reputation. And how come this teacher is always acquiring fame? He always wants to stand in front of the limelight so that all the cameras can concentrate on him, taking photographs of him. He always wants to show himself. Then you know that's not the appropriate teacher, right? You don't need a fully enlightened teacher, and you may not be able to find one. There's no perfection. If you're always looking for perfection, you may be disappointed, because the teacher is at the same time teaching. It's just like, who is a good professor at university? There's so many professors, not all of them are good. You judge by their conduct, by the way they speak, how they present themselves. And if you want to go more, you investigate into his background. A lot of work to do to determine whether that teacher you should follow. You have to be extremely careful. You have to study it. Not just blindly go into a temple and say, I want to be a monk, can you ordain me? If you go into a temple and the temple, okay, you can be a monk, okay, come here, I ordain you tomorrow. Then something must be wrong. How can anybody ordain you without knowing you? A strict teacher always consider a lot of pros and cons before he does something. So I can tell you there's no strict rule as to how do I know what, do you need an enlightened teacher? Well, it's extremely difficult to find an enlightened teacher. Even a certain teacher is enlightened, he may not be enlightened in other ways. Even arahats have bad habits sometimes that they cannot change. The arahats, for example, Nanda. There was an arahat at the time of the Buddha, Nanda. He was already an arahat. Arahat, a saint already. And he was going out teaching the Buddhist teaching to various groups. He is already an arahat, a saint. But because of his habitual habits in previous life of relationship with the opposite sex, whenever he was teaching, he always wanted to concentrate on the human, on the women's side. He liked to see this side more because he's attracted to the women more. And the men's side is a little not that. He still have that bad habit, not the habit that will pull him down, but he still have that kind of habit. And there are arahats who still get mad sometimes if you did the wrong thing, because he hasn't perfected himself yet. So don't look for perfections. Not all teachers are 100% pure and perfection. Only the Buddha is. The teacher is still learning to become the Buddha. But suffice it to say that he has all the qualities of being a good teacher. It's not easy to find a good teacher. Also, it's not easy to find someone who's really good to be an ordained monk. It's difficult to find a good student. At the same time, it's difficult to find a good teacher. If it works out, it must be close to perfection. There are many, many monks and nuns who have been ordained and they still have a lot of bad habits. They're still egoistic, they're still selfish, they're still struggling and fighting. They still have to learn. You're still in the process of learning. Not that you become an ordained monk, you're enlightened. No, you still have to learn. There's a lot more to learn. But you become concentrated in what you're learning. Okay, so I can't give you one answer to that question. Now, last question. In today's lesson, we discussed about unwholesome mental functions. Could you give recommendations on how to change our unwholesome mental function into a positive one? Understand it first, and When you understand it, you always reflect on it. You know unwholesome function, for example, jealousy, for example. You know jealousy, you reflect on it, you watch it, be mindful of it coming out. When it comes out, oh, no, I shouldn't be jealous. I'm sure you know what I mean. All right, okay?